You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com to see the many different shirts we offer. I'm your co-host, Aaron McAtee. Our other co-host, you may have seen him walking out of a great clips with a big old smile on his face. His name is Scott Bowie. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Good, Aaron. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. Before we get into anything else, just want to say we have a great show today. Our guest is a current IndyCar driver and a current Indy 500 winner. I know we've been teasing a little bit, but it is Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Yeah, so glad to have Ryan come in. He took a little time out of his day. He was in Indy to do some sim testing. He was very kind to come on the show. So thanks to Ryan for coming on.
Absolutely. And before we continue with the show, just want to thank everyone for listening. Thanks for liking, subscribing. If you haven't done that already, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Look us up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else where podcasts can be found. We're most likely there. Please give us a follow. We definitely greatly appreciate it. And we're definitely having some other really good, exciting podcasts coming up after this one.
Yeah, and I feel like I say this every week, but we've just been very lucky to get some great guests, and Ryan's definitely going to be one of those. And he's just he just loves Indy and he loves Indy cars, and I know there's a little smoke concerning his future in IndyCar right now, and I, for one, hope that he has a full-time ride either with Andretti next year or somewhere else, and because he is a true asset to the sport.
Oh, absolutely. And kind of on a sadder note, we've lost legendary radio announcer. He also did some TV broadcasting, Bob Jenkins. And this was actually your idea, Scott, so I'll let you kind of talk about kind of what we're going to do with this episode.
Yeah, and we're going to forego our standard format where we talk about the past weekend's racing, and congratulations to Marcus Ericsson, though. But in the Indiana, USAC short track deal and all that. And we're just going to replay a clip from Paul Page talking about his dear friend, Bob Jenkins. Bob, to me, the Thursday Night Thunder and Thunder Series broadcasts were always so important to the midget sprint car world. And his voice is just legendary and iconic, whether it was doing those Thunder broadcasts, whether it's ESPN with NASCAR, or if it was what he truly loved, and that was the Indianapolis 500. And we were all very lucky to listen to Bob and get a chance to enjoy his commentary. And again, we're going to just replay Paul Page's kind words of advice, friend, from an earlier broadcast, and I hope you enjoy it.
And one thing I wanted to mention before we get into it, obviously Bob passed away from cancer. Our Ryan Hunter-Reay interview, something that, kind of works with this is he is very involved with cancer research. He has a foundation called Racing for Cancer. So, I think all of us have been affected by cancer one way or another. We all know somebody, or, we're all involved one way or another. And, it's definitely an important cause. And, if you want to find a way to, how you can help out, definitely check out Racing for Cancer. We'll have the link in the description. And, hope everyone enjoys the interview.
Yeah, and we're also going to try to have the link for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway's tribute to Bob as well.
Absolutely.
So if you want to check that out.
Somewhere along the line, Bob Jenkins came along and you kind of returned the favor that the Sid gave to you, right? And it was kind of the same deal.
Yeah, Bob and I are buddies. We've always been buddies. We were both newsmen originally, working at competing stations. He was at WIRE here in Indianapolis, and I was at WIBC. And we talk about racing and what happened at Winchester this weekend and everything. Mm-hmm. So when I had a chance to replace the Turn 4 announcer, I immediately went for Bob, and he was so good, and he and I and the Speedway tried to put a whole series long radio network together in 1978. And that was fun because it was Bob and I and the engineer and the station coordinator, just the four of us out there. We'd pick up announcers locally, which helped us in two ways. We didn't have to travel an announcer. Everywhere we went, there were good announcers who really knew the tracks locally. Right. And so we'd pick a few of those up, and then they'd get on the air and say, hey, I'm going to be on the radio network on this weekend. So that was our start. And then in 1979, when ESPN came around, it wasn't on the air yet. But I got a call from some of my buddies. I was working for NBC Sports now in New York. And I get this call from this guy who used to be at NBC, and he says, hey, we're going to do some racing on ESPN. And I'm like, what's ESPN? And he tells me, so it's not on the air. So what am I to think? And he says, I need you to go produce. I know you're exclusive as an announcer, but as a producer, you're not. So I need you to produce for me. So I said, sure. And the mobile units, the trucks, came from the Christian Broadcasting Network. And we were doing at Eldora Super Speedway. And we did everything, unloading of the cars, hot laps, testing, then all the way finally to the main. But they said, you got to hire the announcers for this. Okay. So right away I call Bob and I explain what we're doing. And Bob says, that's great. And it was good money considering the day and the time.
Right.
And, he said, well, what are we talking about here? What are we doing? And I said, look, it's a 24-hour sports network. It's never going to last. Just take the money and run. He did for the next 30 years.
My nephew runs midgets a little bit, and long story short, driver couldn't do like a what you'd call it, like when you go somewhere and you got a car, like a signing type thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
And there's a pizza place out in Brownsburg. I can't remember the name of the place, and I apologize if those people are watching. And the other person they had was Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob was kind enough to come over, and he did it. And so at the end of the day, we were packing up because we were actually going racing that night. And we were actually running up at Whitewater, or wherever you want to call it, by where Bob's from. And,
right.
Bob had already talked to my nephew a little bit, and he was so excited to talk about that. But what struck me is how, Bob was, just so kind to even come do something like that.
He is first and above all a gentleman. He loves fans.
Exactly.
He loves talking, and he was perfect for the role.
Right. And one thing that always strikes me about Bob is he always sounds like he's got a smile in his voice.
He does.
It's an amazing thing. The way he expresses himself, he always has a smile.
Well, think about it. And think about it in my regard too. We're two race fans who had nothing going for them, and now we're being paid to go to a race when, we'd been clambering over the back gate if we didn't have that thing going for us. So,
right.
We were in hog heaven of the fact that we could actually go to races, get in, have all the great credentials, and get paid to do it. That was, we were in the tall cotton then.
That's right.
Our guest today is currently driving the number 28 DHL Andretti Autosport Honda IndyCar. He is a 2012 IndyCar Series Champion and is the 2014 Indianapolis 500 winner. We're joined by Ryan Hunter-Reay. Hey, Ryan, how are you doing?
Great. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Aaron.
You are our... Hey, you did
it again.
Ryan.
I did it again. I did the same thing I did the other day.
You are
that's going to be that's my new opening from now on. I just call everybody Aaron.
Right. So you're the first Indy 500 winner we've got on, and the first current IndyCar driver. So we definitely really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no worries. I've been, been at the track many years, and I've seen your passion for the sport. So definitely wanted to, to give it a go. Appreciate you guys' support over the years, and obviously, your passion for IndyCar racing.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I actually, funny enough, I remember you. I think it was 2006 or 2007. You were doing Grand Am in Mid Ohio. That was the first time I think I ever met you.
There you go. Yep.
And then actually I went to Mid Ohio in 2007, and that was your first IndyCar ride, I believe, right? With the Ray
That's
Hall
right.
in
Yep.
2007.
My debut with Ray Hall. Yeah, that's right.
So how did you first get interested in racing?
Just always, with my dad, just watching the Indy 500s at home. I always loved watching racing. Then he started taking me to some IndyCar races. We went to Mid Ohio. We went to Grand Prix in Miami. We started jumping around. We went to Loudon, New Hampshire, and the following and the passion just kind of grew from there. And it got to a point where he got me a little yard cart for the neighborhood. It was actually, it looked like Rick Mears. It was Rick Mears' Pennzoil car, and he'd ride his bike and I'd ride my go-kart, and just gradually started doing it more and more, to a point where I was going too fast in the neighborhood. And he said, "Hey, let's go try this at a racetrack." And we rented a race go-kart. Back then it was all mom and pop stuff. You show up, people are out the back of their pickup trucks, and it was a lot simpler times. But that's where it started. And then for my dad, myself, to share that experience on the road, doing that type of stuff, it was a great bonding experience, and we learned a lot about racing, and it just kind of grew from there.
Right. So would you say your initial goal when you started racing was to eventually drive in the 500?
Yeah, absolutely. It was always IndyCar. For me, it was always IndyCar. I grew up road racing. Even then, I grew up road racing. Some of my friends in go-karting were big NASCAR fans, and I was always an IndyCar guy. It was just what I absolutely loved. And I always wanted to be that, that American representative, because I knew there was many different nationalities represented in the sport. And that's another thing I loved about it. Not only you see these guys race on road courses, street circuits, and then you see them super speedway next weekend, but just the nations represented. It really was a very international sport. So even when I was doing really well in go-karts, I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know it would actually pan out. I always had that kind of feeling like, man, going to give this a go. But from go-karts, it's a huge leap to think that you're going to end up in IndyCar one day. So
I'm sure.
it was a long, hard, tough process to get there. But I was very fortunate to have the Skip Barber racing program at the time kind of really getting fired up. At that point was the Skip Barber National Series, and they awarded kids some of the top 16 of the top champions from around the country to come do a 3-day shootout, and that was really the beginning of my segue into racing cars and the road to Indy.
Right. And obviously you had 2 or 3 very successful years in Champ Car, and then you kind of got hit with the merger into IndyCar, and you didn't have a ride for 2 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I was coming up in karting, IndyCar was rivaling Formula One. Formula One being taken over, it was like it was everything you'd want it to be. And then right as I was getting into kind of thinking about that transition to cars into Skip Barber and stuff, is when the whole split happened. And it fractured the series, but it also made for a lot less opportunities on the Champ Car side, on the road racing side. And right after the split, Champ Car was still the dominant series. It was still the one where all the big teams were in. So I really set my sights on that, went to Formula Atlantic, and slowly but surely, Champ Car over the years was dwindling, kind of coming down. And and at the end of 05 into 06 is probably the thinnest years of Champ Car. And opportunities ran out, and I didn't have a ride for all of 06 and half of 07, which to me felt like it was 10 years.
I bet.
I went and started racing local stock car races at Irwindale Speedway, trying to get kind of my feet on the ground in stock car racing. And I was picked as one of the GM driver development, NASCAR development drivers by Hendrick. I started doing that, and that kind of took off in 07. In the beginning of 07, I met Scott Remke and Bobby Rahal at Long Beach, and I told them, hey, if you ever need somebody to get in the car, get the job done, I'm your guy. Keep me in mind. And lo and behold, I got the call, and I was still doing some of the NASCAR stuff, some of the testing, and I said, hey, I've got an opportunity here. I'm gone.
What was it a case where you had like a dwindling hope for IndyCar racing, or was it a case of, hey, I'm just going to do what I got to do to stay in the sport? I'm going to be here no matter what.
Have to stay, you have to stay relevant. And that's the one thing. The more I saw IRL going road racing, I knew that competition side was going to pick up big time. I knew they were going to need really good road racers in there. Obviously, I had success in Champ Car on the ovals. Milwaukee leading every lap, which is still a record, I believe. And so I had shown that I could do it on the ovals there, and I just kept in the paddock. I kept going to races, and I didn't go to all of them, but I went to some that I could, and made sure that they saw that I was available. But at the same time, I had been out of the seat since the end of 2005, and we're talking middle of 2007. So this was an opportunity where Bobby wanted to make a driver change mid-season, and I think I was one of two that were considered at the time. Flew us out there, had some meetings, things like that. And I said, all right, well, you're in the car this weekend. It's like, oh boy, here we go. It was awesome, though. It was a great time. David Letterman showed up for that first race. I'll never forget the opportunity, and I'll always be grateful for it, for sure, because that really catapulted my career in IndyCar racing. So I never lost hope, but at the same time, I just tried to drive as much as I could and whatever I could. I drove Peter Barron's GT3 car in Grand Am at quite a few races. And then I got the call up from Wayne Taylor to drive the SunTrust car in the championship in the end of the season, in the championship defining race. And they ended up winning the championship. So that was really good to stay, in a whole bunch of different disciplines at the time.
Right. So obviously, when you have down moments, what was it like to be able to win the Indy 500? I mean, that's got to be something that you dreamed about when you were a kid. Never thought you would get there, and like you say, you were without a ride for 2 years, and I'm sure it's just got to be a crazy feeling to kind of think back, like, I didn't even have a ride, and now I just won the Indy 500.
Yeah, it's just perseverance. My dad always instilled that in me, and I really fought hard for every opportunity that I got along the way. And it showed in 2007 and 2008 with Ray Hall, and with Vision and Foyt in 2009, and then the opportunity to drive with Andretti came as a 3-race deal. We finished on the podium in our first race, won the next one. But yeah, I remember during those times when I didn't have a job, it got down to where I had, $50 in my bank account. I had nothing left. And I really, at times, thought it was over. Like, this is, you gave it your best, and it might not work out now. You just might have to focus on something different. I'm sure you've seen that cartoon where the guy's digging in the tunnel, and he just turned around in the tunnel, and there's all the diamonds are inches away. Right. That he couldn't see, and you just got to kind of keep digging that way. Yeah, but the Indy 500, and that's what made every success after that point so much more important to me. And that's what really gave me, I think, that drive that I think I have that goes deeper than a lot, because I struggled through securing jobs. I had great drives, and all of a sudden sponsors would disappear. I had to go get an investor in my career and paid him back for many, many years to come. And it was not an easy road to that point. So when the big moments do come, you appreciate them that much more, for sure.
All right, Ben. And one thing I've always really liked about you, you're really involved with obviously cancer research. You started a foundation, right, called Racing for Cancer?
Racing for Cancer, yep.
And that was obviously inspired from your mother. Yeah.
I lost my mom. Obviously she was too young at that point. I mean, it's all about early detection, and just going through that whole battle with her. I knew I had to do something in my position with motorsports and with racing, with IndyCar racing as a platform to do it. Yeah, we founded Racing for Cancer in 2010, and we've raised millions of dollars over the years. And we've really put those funds into many different aspects of the fight against cancer, patient care, cancer research, supporting medical staff on oncology. We've now done scholarships for nursing staff that are specializing in cancer treatment. We've done a lot with cancer research, some groundbreaking stuff going on there. And really patient care is a big one. That was most important to me with my mom, because the patient care was horrible when she went through it. So we put a lot of money into the Cleveland Clinic Cancer Center, which is a one-stop shop. Basically, there's physicians, there's doctors, specialists for every different type of cancer that you can think of. And, you can get your chemo, your treatment, you can see your doctor all in one place. Whereas with my mom, we were bouncing all over town, driving an hour between appointments and all that stuff. So really appreciate everybody's support in that. And if you want to check out some more, racingforcancer.com.
So when you win the 500 and it was a hard fought battle, and what is that moment like? I mean, at what point does it really start to hit you? Does it hit you at that moment? Does it hit you at the end of the season?
Well, I mean, in the race, I knew about a quarter of the race in, I had a really good car. I started 19th. And by halfway, we were leading. And I knew, all right, you've got an opportunity here. And that, to a driver, is the most pressure you can feel when you find, especially at a race like that. In the years prior to that, in 13, we almost won it. We had a late race restart. And, I was a sitting duck. Tony passed me and the red came out, or the yellow came out, race over. But that's another thing. I had struggled at my first year at Indy. I was rookie of the year, but you never know when you're going to have a really good car. You never know when you're going to have a bad one. And in 2011, we got bumped out of the field. In 2009, I bumped myself into the field when the gun went off. So I had felt the lows there. I had felt the highs, some of the highs. And the second half, that 14 race, I was going to end up in the wall or right there at the end to win the whole thing, because I was so hungry to get it. And that's how the way that race ended. It was just amazing how it was a red flag, and it was kind of like the sudden death overtime, shootout, with 7 laps to go. Elio and I passing each other every lap, inside, around the outside, just doing whatever came naturally. I felt like for those last 7 laps, I don't think my rear end touched the seat. I was literally standing in it, pushing that gas pedal, the throttle pedal, so hard.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's one of those things. I mean, I guess, at what age, like when you were a kid, did you just fully sell out to the dream? At what age did you decide, man, this is it, this is what I'm going to do?
When I was in karting with my dad, and we started as just something fun to do together, and that was fun at first, and then we started getting more serious about it. And when I knew that when we would go up to a new class, a more competitive class, and things would really be up against it, and I had success, and I was winning at every different type of classes, specs, the whole thing. Very fortunate to have had the opportunities that I've had, and to have some of the setbacks that I've had as well, make me who I am today.
And then when you get into the 500 and you've had all that behind you, and then you see your dream is so obtainable, I mean, at that point, you just, like you said, I mean, that's kind of the I would think, at least for that first 500 win, that's the pinnacle point. That's the moment that you've been fighting for that entire time. You'll never be at the first time again.
No, I mean, and all those memories go through your mind as you're on the cool down lap. And I remember thinking to myself on the cool down lap, take all this in, because it's going to go by fast. And it absolutely did. I mean, even the media tour, going on the Letterman show and doing all that stuff, just really took it all in. And it is just an incredible experience. It's not just winning the race, it's everything that comes with it. You've gone from being an IndyCar driver to, even I won the 2012 championship. We won the championship in 2012, and that was hard fought. That came down to the last race, to the last few laps, in fact. But at Indy, it was kind of a culmination of everything, and it was like, okay, we made it. This is it. And it you can't describe it. There's no way to prepare for it. There's no way to prepare for that feeling. But it was just a very emotional day. It was awesome. And the weeks that followed, you're just trying to let it all sink in. And yeah, probably after the season ends, you're like, wow, that really happened.
Yeah. And you got to share it with your family.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, which I'm sure had to make that so much more special at
Absolutely
that point.
does. I mean, they've been a big part of everything that I've done. They're my, support team, and couldn't have done it without them. So yes, absolutely, you're right. I mean, everything about that was a dream come true in all aspects.
Right.
One thing I want to talk about. So obviously, this is the second year of having the Aeroscreen, and I know you had a wreck earlier in the year. I believe it was the St. Pete where the tire hit the Aeros Barber. So obviously, there's a lot of trade-offs with the Aeroscreen. Obviously, the overheating of the driver being one. Do you think the trade-offs are worth it for the Aeroscreen?
I mean, I do. For years, we've always had our heads exposed, and we're doing 240 miles an hour at Indy, for example. And, yeah, if all goes well, I mean, the Conway incident, 2010, I mean, he flew up into the catch fence and chopped off the top of my roll hoop. I mean, I got extremely lucky there. And, just what we've seen over the years. Yeah, we needed something, whether it was a halo or a windscreen, Aeroscreen, but I think the Aeroscreen is important for the super speedways. Yeah, it has its downside on the street courses where it's extremely hot. We're doing these first, second year corners with no power steering, and there's no airflow in the thing. There's just none. So yeah, you got to take with the good with the bad on some of these things. And with a big safety improvement like this, I'll take it. I'll take the downsides, or being a bit hotter in the car for potentially saving lives.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully they get something figured out to where it gets cooler.
I'm sure we'll get there at some point. Yeah, it's really an issue on the street circuits where we're down in that concrete canyon kind of, and the track temp is so hot, and then you've got concrete walls on either side, and that heat just has nowhere to go. And we're down in there, and when there's a lot of humidity, and we're negotiating all these tight turns, it's extremely tough.
When you're, this kind of almost goes along a little bit with what's happening in NASCAR at this moment, in terms of some of the drivers. They're making the changes to Atlanta, and some of the drivers aren't very happy, and that sort of thing. And that led a friend of mine to ask me this: who, like, when you guys have an issue, like just whatever the issue may be, as drivers as a whole, do you guys have like someone who goes and speaks to that represents to IndyCar, the sanctioning by itself?
Yeah, we used to have a driver council, where we'd have our group, and one person at the time, I believe it was Justin Wilson, would, we'd have our group email, and we'd go back and forth on these topics, and there'd be, hundreds of replies and things like that. We narrow down to what our message wants to be, and it would be organized, and it would be direct and one flowing message to IndyCar. We went away from that for years, and now we're kind of getting back there, but it only comes up, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 times a year where we really have something that we want to communicate to IndyCar in an effective, efficient manner. And now James Hinchcliffe has been kind of heading that up, where he'll take all the emails, he'll take all the messages, and we'll agree or disagree as a group, and then he'll go and speak with Jay Fry or whoever it may be at IndyCar to get that message across. And even then, at that point, they may not listen to us or take what we have or what advice that we're suggesting, but at least the message is heard. Because if you get a group of drivers in a room and we're all talking about it with IndyCar management, it just sounds like a bunch of dogs barking.
Sure.
It never gets anywhere. So to do it that way is the best way. And we do have some organization there, and it's not as organized as it used to be back in the Champ Car days or kart days, or when Justin was doing it prior to his passing. But yeah, it's close to that, I would say.
One of the last questions I was going to ask you, Ryan, before you go, how did you get the nickname of Captain America?
I think it came from Lee Diffie, and I don't know, it came off of 2014 and 2012, obviously winning those and being kind of the American representative, the American driver that was winning races. And every time I won, I'd always bring that American flag up. I think that was a big part of it. I was very proud to fly the Stars and Stripes. Like when I got out of the car at the Indy 500, was the first thing I did on the Yard of Bricks, was get that flag out there. And that was always important to me when I was a kid. I watched and rooted for the Americans that were doing well and that were winning races. And I relate to that. I wanted them to beat the Brazilians. I wanted them to beat, the English and, the British drivers. And I wanted them to beat the Canadians. And when I got the opportunity to do that, I definitely took a hold of it and ran with it.
That's great. That, well, we got 6 races left. And is that right? Yep. And we got Speedway coming up, road course, and then we've got Nashville, which is obviously new. That when you go to somewhere new like Nashville, I mean, what kind of? I mean, you can't really simulate it. I would assume you don't have simulators set up for you, or maybe you do. Maybe you have something already in a system. How do you prepare for a new course, especially like a road or street course like that?
Well, it's a good point on the simulator side. We do have something that has a rough, we have the layout. So we do have a simulator for that, a simulation model for that. But a simulator is only as good as the model's accuracy. And to get that accuracy, you have to work on the track. You have to work on the grip level. Some corners are more grip than others. So that's all based on experience, on real world experience. So you have to compare what you faced in reality to that sim model, and you dial the sim model in from there. So for Nashville, we have no idea if our sim model is accurate or not. We basically use it as kind of, okay, the track goes left here and it goes right there, and a little bit of driver familiarity. But 99% of the work that we do in a simulator is for the engineering side, to make changes, to give ourselves kind of a toolbox of changes that we can narrow down on a race weekend and apply it, see if it works from the simulator. Because these practice sessions are so short, the amount of time that we have on track. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a new challenge. I love going to new places like that, and new street circuits, because nobody's been there, and it's kind of a clean sheet of paper. But yeah, we need to, we need to get some good results in. Obviously at Mid-Ohio, came in the first corner, I was 8th and got cleaned out from behind. And it's just been that type of season, one way or another. I don't know why, but it is what it is. And, at Indy, we had the brake failure. We were running, I think we would have come out, they told me we would have come out 3rd or 4th after that pit stop. And that would have put us in a great spot to fight for it. And then, the anvil came out of the sky, plopped us. And that's just how it's been. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Nashville. And then we're testing this week at Laguna Seca, or next week at Laguna Seca on Tuesday. And the week following, we're testing at Gateway in St. Louis. And then we go back for the Nashville race, onto the Indy GP or the Harvest GP, whatever they're calling it. Not really sure, to be honest with you. St. Louis, and then the 3 West Coast races, which really enjoy all those tracks.
Do you feel like you have an advantage with all your experience when you go to these new places and it is a clean sheet?
In some cases, yeah, but I mean, it's a street circuit, and the driver capabilities, the caliber of drivers is so high that everybody is very close, and it really comes down to the setup on the car and how much grip, how you're really making those tires stay on the road, maximizing that tire patch that you have on the ground. And yeah, of course, it comes down to driver approach as well, lines and pedal work and things like that. But yeah, the street circuits tend to be a bit more of hair on fire approach, and you just gotta make do with what you have on a low grip circuit.
As a fan, my just observational, looking at from the outside looking in, it appears to me that this is probably about the best group of racers the series has had in a long time. I mean, as a driver, can you feel that the competition level is just so ramped up, or is it always kind of that way, and it just seems different today because there's so many young guys?
Yeah. I mean, it's the teams and drivers, right? Even back in the kart heydays, in the mid 90s, this is more competitive than it was then, because there was such a discrepancy between teams. Now, even when you compare it to 5-6 years ago, you have these teams that are just really dialed in with this car. We didn't have an Aero a few years ago that is on track and is firing on all cylinders as much. And Ganassi has, 3 drivers that can win any given week, and Penske has, 3 to 4 drivers that can compete right up at the front every weekend, and Andretti Autosport the same. And Coin is up there now all the time, and it's just maximized, right? So all these teams are now working within such a small window with the car, and these drivers, all the drivers are so good that, it used to be if you were off by a tenth and a half, it might be a spot or 2. Now a tenth and a half, it could be 8 spots at some of these tracks. So very, very, very competitive. And I think that's not only down to the drivers, but that's down to the caliber of the teams and the personnel there.
As a driver yourself, do you feel more comfortable racing against that group of cars that is so, everybody's so good that, it's so tight, the speeds are, there's not that huge discrepancy. So you're not running up on guys super quick and things like that. Or, obviously changes the way you have to race.
You have to go for every opportunity because you may not know if you get it again, especially on starts. That's why everybody's so aggressive on starts and restarts and things like that. There's a lot of emphasis on pit lane. But yeah, I don't really think of it as that the driving pool was not so weak to where it was a safety issue in the past.
Right.
This is just, it's really amped up now to where we've gone from 95% to right at 100. It's just the opportunities when they present themselves, you have to capitalize.
Right. Absolutely. And I just want to say on a personal level, thank you very much for coming on. I know you have a very tight schedule. Very kind of you. So thank you.
No worries. My pleasure. Thank you guys for your passion and support. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you for, always being cool with the fans, having time for the fans. Like we said earlier, I've seen you, at the racetrack for the past probably 15, 16 years now. So it's definitely been an honor, and definitely look forward to hopefully seeing IndyCar many more years.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for
now, I do have one last question. Would it be safe to say that it's Max Gordon's world and we're just living in it? That he's just,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That kid has loads of talent. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can make something of that. We'd love to support him in that. But yeah, he's been wheeling cars since he was 4, I think, off-road cars and stuff like that. So it'd be great to see him on pavement as well.
Yeah, I've had a chance to watch him just a little bit, and he's great. So
absolutely.
Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks.
All right.
Ryan.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.
See ya.
Take care, Ryan.